I just spawned in Minecraft's deadliest dimension, and my goal is to defeat the Wither boss. I eye up my surroundings looking for anything useful. In the distance I see a fortress and some trees, but I've got a far ways to go. Eventually I find my first sign of something to eat. Mushrooms. I can't really eat them right now as they are, but at least they give me some amount of hope for the future. I stumbled across a crimson forest, which was a little ominous, but it's got what I'm looking for. Wood. I didn't even get a single log before a piglin started swinging at me, but this is when I realized I probably have to approach it a little more tactfully. With some wood now in my possession, I was finally able to make my first tool, a beautiful wooden pickaxe. I used this pickaxe to mine some gold and craft some boots because I figured I might be more welcomed into the forest if I had some better drip. I soon found my first brown mushroom, which allowed me to create my first meal. I then headed back to the Basalt Delta to get some blackstone because this can be used to upgrade my tools and even make a furnace and stuff like that. I decided to get a good amount of blackstone because who knows the next time I'll be back here. I also decided to mine some quartz. Maybe I could use it in like a base or something, but there really isn't much purpose for it right now. And it's also pretty slow to mine. Now that I had stronger tools, I made my way back to the Crimson Forest. I went through the mental dilemma of whether or not I should worry about cutting down the entire tree because I feel like it's pretty terrible to leave a floating tree in the overworld, but I'm not really sure if that applies in the Nether, especially since the wart blocks don't despawn at all. But whatever, I just cut it down this time. We'll see how long that lasts. I eventually came across my first peaceful piglin and I had 1 gold ingot, so I tried my luck with 1 trade. I got some blackstone, which I already had a ton of, but more importantly, I ended up getting the piglin's respect because after that, this happened. Lo and behold, my life was saved by a heroic pig in shining armor. I stole the loot that he got and was excited to have my first cooked meal with my newly crafted furnace. But I soon realized that you can't actually smelt with the nether wood because it's fireproof, which I guess makes sense, but I could just make them into sticks and that would work for now. However that works. I did some mining off camera and I got a full set of gold armor. My next goal was to raid this nether fortress because structures like this are really the only places that I can get decent loot like iron and diamonds. I scaled the wall of the fortress and started raiding. Eventually I found the interior halls which have all the goodies in them. My first chest had 2 diamonds as well as a flint and steel which I could use to cook hoglins without a furnace. Then I found some iron and immediately made a shield because every mob does so much damage and having some sort of defense will be really helpful. I got out with both my life and some riches. Here's all the loot that I got from the fortress. Nothing too crazy, but I did get my first wither skull, which makes me a third of the way to fighting the wither. I was starting to run out of inventory space, so I wanted to start looking for a place to settle down. Ideally, I want somewhere near a red forest for a stable food supply, as well as a blue forest for some peace and tranquility, because there's not many hostile mobs there. I would also need to find a bastion at some point, because that's where the really good loot lies. So I just started exploring in a random direction, gathering resources along the way. I got some more food, and then I remembered that you can actually smelt with blaze rods. They're actually more powerful than coal. They can smelt 12 items per rod, while coal is 8, I think. I found the mother lode of brown mushrooms, and then I started mining a whole bunch of gold to trade with piglins. They offer a lot of resources that are hard to get otherwise, and I especially wanted some more iron as well as some string for some bundles for the inventory problem. Eventually, I came across another Nether fortress and decided that I might as well raid it. I saw a piglin absolutely tank a ghast shot. And then I hit maybe the longest deflect that I've ever made. I crossed through my first soul sand valley and found some dried ghasts along the way. I don't think that I can really revive them anyway since there's no water in the Nether, but they seem novel enough to take anyway. Eventually, I made it to the fortress and cue the montage. Found a couple more diamonds, and also my second wither skeleton skull, which makes me 2/3 the way there to being able to spawn the wither. I continued looking for a place to settle down, and eventually came across some piglins to barter with. I got lots of useful items like string, which can be used to create bundles, fishing rods, and bows. I got ender pearls and obsidian, which I can combine with blaze powder to make an ender chest. And I got crying obsidian, which I can use to make a respawn anchor. I made quick use of my string by making a warped fungus on a stick to befriend a strider. With a saddle that I found in a fortress, I set sail in search of a place to call home. After a while traveling, I came across a third nether fortress. It had a cool island vibe that I really liked, and more importantly, nearby was the first bastion of the entire challenge. It's back there, I promise. I decided to use this fortress as a base of operations. I had a cool idea of creating a little port thing for my strider on the leg of the fortress, and maybe I could live inside of the leg for now. My strider had an uncontrollable urge to move in the opposite direction for the entire time that I was building, but I ended up making a little platform and parked him right on top. I didn't want my friend to be cold, so I made him some trapdoors to stand on right above the lava. I also think it looks really cool. I dug out an interior and thought it'd be cool to have some sort of multi-level tower house. I figured this would be a great place for my respawn anchor, which allows me to respawn here if I were to ever die. Ideally, I wanted to die as little as possible in this challenge, but just in case I did die and wanted to continue, I thought it'd be good to have this. Also, it kind of felt like making a house a home in the sense of like placing a bed in your overworld house. I placed down some normal utilities like chests, furnaces, crafting tables, you name it. It felt good finally being able to have a place to safely store my items before I go risk my life in a bastion or something. I made a little balcony on the second floor, and I plan to make more of these in the future. I also decorated the front of my house with the wither skeleton skulls that I've been collecting. I placed my 3 little gas babies on a table on the second floor for now. In the future, I plan to make some sort of treasury room to display cool stuff that I found like this, but for now they're just gonna chill over here. I thought my base was looking pretty cool so far, and I started getting really motivated to make it look really awesome. In order to do that though, I wanted to get some stronger tools first to make resource collection easier, which is why I wanted to go raid the bastion and have a safe place to store my items in the meantime. So I started preparing to take on the nearby bastion. My trip to the Bastion was an absolute success. I got a whole bunch of loot, like 3 diamond pickaxes, 2 diamond shovels, 29 iron, a whole bunch of gold, a smithing template, a whole bunch of arrows, food, obsidian. I was feeling good. These items would sustain me for a while, and I wanted to go get even more loot from a second Bastion. I hopped on my Strider, and within a matter of a few minutes I stumbled across a second Bastion, this time in a basalt delta. I parked up my Strider and went in for round 2. This was honestly cruel. I kinda still feel bad. But don't worry, karma got me back immediately. I returned home with even more riches. This bastion wasn't as good as the previous one, but I still got some more iron and other useful items. I also got a Piglin Brute's Axe, which I thought would be a cool item for the treasury. By now, I had 59 iron, which I felt was enough to craft some iron armor. This was the first armor upgrade that I've had in a while, and I felt good to be stronger than ever. I opted to keep my golden helmet since it offers the same amount of protection as iron while also keeping the piglins peaceful. I also made a diamond axe to chop some trees because my next goal is to improve my base. It was now time to enact the first phase of my home improvement plan. I thought that it'd be really cool if I kept the overall shape of the fortress, but added stuff onto it like extra rooms and bridges and stuff like that. I thought my base was starting to look pretty snazzy. I thought it had some fun geometry to work around, and it felt cool to live in a way that I've never really done in this game before. However, you may notice that it is made out of one single block type nether brick, and we can't have that. Phase 2 of my home improvement plan was to add some details. This required getting some other blocks that I didn't currently have, so I needed to set sail on some resource gathering missions. Firstly, I made my way to the Bastion to get some blackstone. In my opinion, this is one of the prettiest and most versatile blocks that you can get in the Nether, so it's going to be a key component of my base. Next, I needed a color that popped. I really like the purplish red of the crimson wood, so I spent some time chopping down a whole bunch of trees. Lastly, call me crazy, but I'm not a huge fan of the warped blocks. I think that they're cool but kind of hard to work with in a build. However, I did want to add some vegetation to my base, and I thought that these would work perfect. Here it is. I'm pretty proud of this, and I think that looks pretty cool. Here's what it looks like with shaders if you're so inclined. When editing, I realized that I never actually did a base tour, so I'm just gonna do one now. I cleared out my inventory a bit to prevent some spoilers and stuff, so if anything looks off, that's why. So let's begin the first live segment of this video for the base tour. Alright, so starting off, I expanded the little Strider docking station out here to have some more room for more Striders. I think it's good to have a backup in case I lose any, in case I accidentally forget to bring one home or something. I really like this floor design. It's got like a cool grate vibe where I can still walk on them, and the Striders are also warm. You don't want them shivering all the time like this guy right here. They got a little mushroom that they like too. Here's the main entrance. If we walk in, this is kind of an entrance room that just stores armor and tools and stuff like that, as well as my respawn anchor, which is pretty much like my bed. If we make our way up this ladder, we have the main storage room of the base. We have some general materials. We've got a whole bunch of blocks. We've got a whole bunch of farmables and vegetation-y stuff like that, as well as 7 blackstones, some gravel, and some chains, as well as our ender chest, which is very useful. I don't really have any spares, but it would be cool to have some spares on me, and if I'm so far away in the Nether, it's cool to get some important resources that I may have. We also got a little balcony out here. You can look down on the Striders, and the Bastion is over there if you can faintly see it. We also got the bridge, but we'll check that out in a minute. If we go up to the 3rd floor, we have our little brewing room slash kind of vibe area. We got our brewing stand with some potion making materials, which we can actually make a decent amount of potions in the Nether, which is cool. We also have this little railing design that I'm really proud of. It's kind of takes a little bit of creativity, but it's like little pillars They don't fully reach the top, but from most angles, I think it looks pretty cool. And it's cool that you can place these vines on like wood and stuff. I didn't really think you could, but yeah, proud of that. We got like little plants in the brewing room, kind of like an alchemy area. I like it, as well as another balcony. And as well as a cooking area. I kind of put this outside on a balcony because, you know, if you're cooking, you kind of want the smoke to not flood your house. So I think that's cool, even though you're kind of in the nether, but whatever. You can also get a cool view of the bridge from up here, as well as our hanging lanterns. And we're going to go cross this in a minute. You can see kind of the flower pots and stuff. I think that's cool. We'll go down here and go over the bridge. I really like this bridge. I think it's a really cool design. It's not really gas proof, but I haven't really had a problem. I mean, I'm standing here right now and I'm chilling. So yeah, that's about it. Connects this side of the base, which I have some kind of weird niche rooms. Right here I have like a little loom banner making room with some banner patterns, and the only way to get wool is by using string. So kind of ran out of ideas for the rooms, but I think that they're small enough to justify little workstations like this. If we go down, we have our armory. We have some smithing templates and upgrades and stuff, as well as our anvil, which was very expensive to make, but we made one. Then if we go up here to the 3rd floor, this is our treasury room. We got 4 little gas babies here. We have a piglin brute axe, as well as a wither skeleton stone sword. Kind of like, you know, functionally a useless room, but I think it's cool to kind of play as if, you know, I'm a warrior and I, you know, got these rare items on my nether survival. You know, I think it's cool. You also get a nice view of the back of the base out here. You got, you know, a ruined portal. You can kind of see some stuff over there. Yeah, I like it. Out here is just another balcony, nothing crazy. We go up to the kind of roof area. We have an actual fortress in here. We've got our netherwort farm. That's honestly about it. I thought about making this area a little more useful, but again, I kind of just ran out of ideas to put stuff. So, but yeah, that's the main tour of the base. I'm pretty proud of it. I think I kept it true to its Nether Fortress roots while still also customizing it and making it my own. So yeah, thanks for checking it out with me. Okay, I just got hit once for 7.5 hearts of damage on awkward terrain on the side of basically a skyscraper. What would you say is the next best course of action in this scenario? Well, I can tell you what not to do. That was my first death for this entire challenge, and although I'm not proud of it, it is what it is. I was really liking my progress so far in this world, so I decided to keep going with it. Luckily, I found a backup strider and was able to get back to where I died to recover my items. A little bit traumatized, I decided to head back to my base and do something different. Food is kind of hard to get in the nether and my supply was dwindling. I had originally planned to live near a crimson forest in order to hunt hoglins, but that didn't end up happening. To fix this problem, I sailed to the nearest crimson forest with the goal of making a hoglin farm, since you can actually breed them with the crimson mushrooms. As you may expect, trying to herd them up in a pen was absolutely miserable, so here's just some highlights from that. I probably lost more food than I gained during this process, but I finally got a few in the pen and then just called it quits. I made a cute little bridge as well as a little strider port and then headed back home. So at this point, it kind of felt like I had done just about everything that the Nether had to offer. All that was really left was to fight the Wither boss, and at this point in time, I only had iron armor, and I didn't really think that I'd be able to take it on. I decided to hit a few more fortresses and bastions to hopefully get some diamond armor. I'm going to skip out on most of the content since you kind of already saw that a lot in this video, but I'll show you some of the highlights. I found a treasure bastion which has the best loot of all bastion types, and is also the coolest looking one in my opinion. I got insanely lucky and got 3 pieces of diamond armor in a single chest. This would be crucial for me to defeat the Wither boss. I started to prepare my gear for the final battle. I had been accumulating netherite throughout the challenge and I had just enough diamonds to make a diamond chestplate. I also had some armor trims and started to drip myself out. I decided to go with the gold trims since it's played a pivotal part in this challenge. It might look like I'm pretty stacked and thus prepared to take on the Wither, but all of my armor has basically no enchantments at all since you can't get an enchanting table with no paper in the Nether, and I also didn't have a good weapon. I brewed up some regeneration potions to hopefully sustain me throughout the battle, but it was gonna be a tough fight. In case I didn't make it back, I left my striders their favorite treat, a warped mushroom. They had been so loyal to me and I couldn't have gotten to where I am without them. And so, I ventured forth to take on the Wither. I lost. It was a good fight, but I made a lot of mistakes. I wasn't wearing my gold boots at the start, and I also lost a lot of health and valuable time in the lava as the wither effect slowly took its toll on my life. I probably could have come better prepared, but I learned that the Nether was not a very recyclable place. I had stripped the valuable resources from the local area, and the only way to get more would have been to venture further into the unknown. The Nether favors a nomadic lifestyle, not one that most players who want to settle down and build something beautiful are used to. I tried my best to make the Nether a hospitable place, and I had a surprising amount of fun doing so. But at the end of the day, Who wants to live in hell anyway? If you got this far, thank you so much for watching. This is my first ever video that I put a genuine amount of effort into, and it means the world to me that you enjoyed it enough to get this far. It definitely isn't perfect, so definitely feel free to provide any suggestions in the comments as to how I can improve for future videos. I plan to make more videos in the future whenever I have time, but I have a full-time job, so it's kind of a challenge. Feel free to subscribe if you're interested in possibly being recommended something for me in the future, who knows. And thank you again, and have a good one.